So let's move in the final to the final slide. So development impact. So connect your goals to national or regional priorities. That will show how your studies or research will address specific development challenges in your country or region, such as poverty reduction, health, education, climate change, governance. And then you should also reference national development plans, SDGs, or sectoral strategies if it's possible. So those are just some of the tips, you know. Those are just some of the tips that you should consider when you're connecting your goals to national or regional priorities. Clearly show how your studies or research will address specific development challenges. This is more specifically for PhD as well, you know. Reference national development plans, SDGs, or sectoral strategies, if possible. If you are doing, if you are doing, uh, uh, if you are doing a what a proposal, a research proposal, make sure that within your research you are able to include some of the key findings that are there related to SDGs, sectoral strategies, if based on the specific theme that you have chosen. You can also do that with masters, especially when you're doing personal statement, the statement that we spoke about earlier. With PhD, you need to detail them more in your research because I mean in your research proposal, because the proposal will also have what we call problem statement, a problem statement. So you need, before you you come up with your data collection strategies, your research strategies in general, what you want to achieve, you start with highlighting your problem statement. What is the problem that you want to address? And for you to do that, you need to reference national development plans that are there. That's why you need more research and more time. Be specific about impact. Describe the tangible changes you hope to bring, after your research, even if it's masters as well. But after you are done with your education, what changes do you hope to bring? E.g., new policies. Do you want to improve new policies? New policies. Do you want to improve practices of doing certain things, depending on the theme that you have selected? Whether it's health system strengthening, whether it's to do with education, etc. Whether it's to do with environment. What new policies do you want to bring? If it's not a process, maybe it might not be a new policy. It might just be practices that are there. Maybe they are not. Maybe we are still using practices that are no longer that are no longer used as of today. How do you want to improve them? Based on the new knowledge that you want to gain after you do your master's or you do your PhD. In terms of tangible changes, those might also include capacity building. So you might highlight to say, after I finish my master's or whatever, I'll have gained these skills that I'm going to use to build capacity of X, to achieve Y. It could be that based on the master's that you are studying or the PhD that you are researching, one of the key elements that you want to do is to learn how to use certain new technologies to achieve certain things within the health system or within education or within environment or peace and security, whatever theme that you've chosen, and what you'll be looking to do is that after your studies, you are going to use whatever you've learned for technology transfer. So you've learned about new technologies that are used in the area of study, and see to what extent, that knowledge can be transferred, that technology knowledge can be transferred to your communities. So you should use examples like, after my studies, I plan to implement X project, which will benefit Y people by Z means. After my studies, I plan to implement X project, which will implement Y people to Z means, by Z means. For PhD applicants, make sure that you align your research with development theme. Clearly state your research questions and how it addresses a development issue. Explain how your research outcomes could be applied in practice, e.g. informing policy, improving services, supporting innovations. Please take this one down. Mention potential collaborations with local institutions and stakeholders. That is also important for those who apply for PhD. So for that one, it's not for the research proposal. It's for the motivational essays within the form, the application form itself. And unlike the masters, those who are studying masters, those who are applying for masters, with a PhD, you also need to mention the long-term vision. Like, discuss how you will sustain impact beyond your studies, e.g. training others, influencing policy, ongoing research. So long-term vision, you might, within the definition of CSC, they look at 5 years, post 5 years. So when you're coming back and then you explain, after I come back, I want to do A, B, C, D, E. This is what you want to do after your studies. And most of the times it's from the time you come back to within 5 years. Beyond 5 years, from the CSC perspective, from the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission perspective, beyond in terms of long-term vision, they view that as 5 years plus, 5 to 10 years. So 5 to 10 years, these are the transformations that I want to make. For doctoral applicants, please ensure that you have already approached and discussed your proposal with the potential supervisor. I've already mentioned that, and that they have already approved it. And they have committed to supervise your research for your application. That is critical. So that, okay, so I think I still remain with one slide. This is the last slide. Remember we spoke about the reasons for choosing the UK and specific institutions. Just additional tips. Number one, highlight the UK's strength in general. The UK, why would you want to study in the UK? So start from the top down. So highlight the UK's strength. Mention the UK's global reputation for quality education, research excellence, multicultural environment. So you can do your research, but those are some of the common reasons that people highlight when they're applying, Reference the UK's leadership in your field. Remember, at the beginning of this presentation, I mentioned about leadership potential. So in your essay, also make sure that you include anything to do with leadership. Because if that is missing, it can also weaken your application. So reference the UK's leadership in your field, e.g. the UK is a global leader in renewable energy research, etc. So that's just an example, and mention why that is important. How are you going to replicate the leadership aspects of it to your country when you go back home? Be institution specific. Name the universities you are applying to and explain why they are ideal for your goals. And that includes highlighting the unique courses, renowned faculty, research centers. So every university that you're applying for, don't just go to the course. Do further research about the university itself, because that is important to include in your essay. So don't just be focused on the course that you are looking for, no, but also make sure that you make sure that you know about the university itself and what it is renowned for and how that is going to help in your studies. So mention the institution itself. Mention any specific professors, labs, or resources that are relevant to your research or career plan. This is not mandatory. It's just a tip that if you use it, can potentially increase your chances. So it can increase your chances, but it's not mandatory that you have to mention professors. If you know some professors, it will be good to mention them because it will just increase your chances. So it's not mandatory, but it will increase your chances. Depending on the nature of the course that you are applying for, you can even mention the labs, if that is relevant to the course that you're applying for, or the resources that are relevant to your research or career plans. Link to your development goals. Explain how studying at these institutions will equip you with the skills, knowledge, and networks needed to achieve your development impact. That is why it is important to research. So if you're applying at Liverpool, University of Leeds, University of Leeds, University of Liverpool, University of Manchester, then always make sure that you are doing thorough research about the whole university itself, not just the course. So finally, what are some of the phrases that you can use when you're applying, when you're writing your essays? Because most of the questions, you'll be answering them in the essay format, in the essay format. Most of the questions in the application form. So what are some of the phrases that you should be using frequently? For example, my research on topic, so you name the topic. So my research on this topic directly addresses, you mentioned the development challenge, in your country, of course, aligning with, you mentioned the national strategy or SDG. That shows that you know what you are doing. You've done enough research. You already know the national strategies that are available in Malawi, in this case. Okay, the national strategies related to the health systems and whatever. So you want to contribute to that, or you want to align whatever you want to research to that. If it's not research, if it's just taught masters, because you know the specific modules, so just to replace that with the specific modules, So you would say my study in this, my study for this course. So you name the course, directly addresses, you mention the development challenge derived from the theme, that one of the 6 themes that we spoke about, in your country, aligning with different strategies, that you have, or it might not just be strategy, it can just be a specific SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, the UN Sustainable Development Goals. You can use sample phrases like the UK's expertise in, you mentioned the field, and you mentioned the institution, which is the university. So the UK's expertise in the field or institutions cutting edge. So it could be the UK's expertise in health systems management, health systems management at Loughborough University's cutting edge research facilities will enable me to develop solutions applicable to my local context. So that would be Malawi or your local context, whichever way you want to express that in your application. Upon return, I will leverage the skills and networks gained to describe the specific impact. So those are just examples of the phrases that you can use to help you enhance your application. So that marks the end of my presentation. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for attending this this presentation. And so let me request for any questions, any worries that you have, let's discuss them. This was just meant just to give you the tips and whatever, but if you have any questions, let's just discuss them. I'm here to provide my own experiences. Although my experience is a bit biased because Commonwealth Scholarship for me is for the PhD, not for the masters. Masters I didn't do. I didn't do scholarship from the UK. But I should be able to answer some questions related to the master's program.